Welcome to From the Pages, and this issue of Rulebreaker opens by grounding itself in reaction, not hype, not nostalgia, but response. The reviews are in exist to establish the emotional climate surrounding wrestling at this moment. The magazine frames this section as a pulse check, collecting opinions, impressions, and reactions to recent developments in the sport. It's clear from the tone that wrestling is not sitting comfortably with its audience. Some fans are energized, others are frustrated, and many are divided. This opening does not attempt to resolve those reactions. Instead, it presents them as proof that wrestling is still capable of provoking strong feeling, which the magazine treats as essential. From there, the focus tightens with Cactus Jerk, a feature that places Cactus Jack under a microscope. This article does not merely describe his matches or recount his career. It centers on the physical punishment he absorbs and the emotional response that punishment generates. The language emphasizes endurance, damage, and excess. The magazine questions whether fans truly want authenticity when it looks this brutal, or whether they prefer danger only when it remains abstract. Cactus Jack is framed as a wrestler who exposes the audience's limits, forcing them to confront what they are willing to watch and support. The issue then swings sharply to Lex's appeal, creating an intentional contrast. This section examines Lex Luger through the lens of image, presentation, and marketability. The article focuses on physique, visibility, and promotion, exploring how perception shapes success. Where Cactus Jack is framed through pain and sacrifice, Luger is framed through polish and appeal. The magazine does not outright condemn this, but it clearly invites skepticism. It asks whether wrestling has begun rewarding appearance more than substance, and whether that shift has altered what fans expect from performers. That tension feeds directly into "We hear ya," the reader letters section. Here, fans speak in their own voices. Some applaud the magazine's willingness to challenge convention. Others push back, uncomfortable with its tone or its rankings. The editors make no attempt to smooth over these disagreements. Letters are presented as evidence of division, not as problems to be solved. The section reinforces the idea that wrestling fandom is not unified, and that disagreement is not only inevitable, but healthy. The magazine then asserts its editorial authority with The Truth, written by Eddie Elner. This column positions itself as a corrective, challenging, surface-level wrestling coverage. Elner argues that headlines rarely tell the full story, and that fans are often encouraged to accept narratives without question. He urges readers to look beyond wins and losses and examine motivation, politics, and intent. The tone is firm and direct, suggesting that accepting easy explanations diminishes the fans' understanding of the sport. That seriousness gives way to raw candor and gossip that will shock and amaze you. This section embraces rumor and backstage chatter openly. Rather than dismiss gossip as trivial, the magazine treats it as necessary context. Wrestling is presented as a business driven by personalities, egos, and tension. The implication is that pretending these elements don't exist creates a false picture of the industry. From there, the magazine formalizes its value system with ranking our guys with the respect they deserve. These rankings are framed as measures of credibility rather than popularity. Wrestlers are evaluated based on toughness, consistency, and presence. This is followed by who's in, who's out, which expands the discussion through dual top 20 lists. These lists emphasize movement, highlighting who has gained momentum and who has lost standing. The rankings are designed to provoke debate and force readers to question their own assumptions. The confrontational tone continues with Talkin Trash, written by Donna Garcia From. This column leans into strong opinion, addressing controversial topics with little concern for consensus. The language is sharp and the intent is clear: challenge the reader, stir reaction, and refuse neutrality. At the core of the issue sit the Rulebreaker ratings, the system that defines who truly embodies the magazine's philosophy. Ratings analysis follows, explaining why certain wrestlers rose or fell. The magazine frames these changes as consequences of behavior and attitude rather than simple performance. Falling in the rankings is portrayed as a loss of edge, while rising reflects resistance to comfort and conformity. A tonal shift appears with Balancing Act, written by Bill Apter. This column answers reader mail in a calmer, more measured voice. Its placement is deliberate. Surrounded by aggressive opinion, moderation feels almost out of place. The magazine allows balance to speak, but it does not endorse it outright, leaving the reader to decide its value. That calm is quickly replaced by Rulebreakers Insider, written by Joey Styles. This section promises proximity to the locker room, focusing on internal developments and backstage politics. It reinforces the idea that wrestling's real stories often unfold away from the spotlight, and that understanding the business requires accepting its internal conflicts. One of the issue's most direct critiques arrives with Crush turns to mush, how the fans demolished his fighting spirit. This article argues that fan favoritism weakened Crush's edge. Approval made him predictable. Popularity dulled his aggression. The piece implicates the audience directly, suggesting that cheering can sometimes undermine the very qualities fans claim to admire. That accusation deepens in Confessions of a Former Fan Favorite, where Brian Pillman speaks candidly. Pillman challenges the narrative that he dramatically changed, arguing instead that expectations shifted around him. He discusses the pressure to please and how stepping away from that role brought clarity. The magazine frames his honesty as a rejection of imposed identity. The focus then shifts to interview 93, Rick Steamboat. This is not a triumphant profile. Steamboat is portrayed as skilled and respected, but vulnerable. The article emphasizes how changes in the wrestling environment have left even honorable competitors exposed. Technical excellence, the magazine suggests, no longer guarantees safety. Criticism intensifies with the desperate act of a managerial failure, and Jimmy Hart jumps ship. These pieces frame managerial decisions as driven by fear rather than belief. Hart's alignment with Hulk Hogan is presented as abandoning conviction for security, a move born of desperation. The issue broadens its scope with the 10 best rule breakers you've never heard of, highlighting lesser known wrestlers operating outside mainstream attention. Obscurity is framed as authenticity. These performers matter because they exist without approval. That authenticity is contrasted sharply in Hulk Hogan's fifth title reign, A Black Eye for Wrestling. The article is unapologetic, arguing that nostalgia degrades the sport and that prolonged dominance suffocates innovation. The magazine treats this as a systemic problem, not an individual failing. Emotion peaks with brotherly hate, focusing on the Gilbert brothers. The rivalry is framed as deeply personal, driven by pride and resentment rather than promotion. The magazine presents it as one of wrestling's most genuine conflicts. Honor is then given in the Rulebreaker Hall of Fame, inducting Bruiser Brody. Brody is celebrated for refusal to conform, soften, or be controlled. Championships are secondary to principle. Personal reflection follows in my Say Tony Anthony, where the dirty white boy speaks plainly about his career and mindset. The issue then draws sharp distinctions in wimps and warriors, separating toughness from weakness before closing with tough talk, where wrestlers speak candidly without filter. The final section, Yukihiro Kanemura Gets Spiked, ends the issue on consequence rather than celebration. Pain is the last image, reinforcing the magazine's belief that wrestling reveals its truth through impact. If this issue stirred something in you, say what it stirred, argue with it, push back. Like, share, and subscribe so we can keep pulling these stories straight from the pages. See you next time. Farewell from the Empire State.